Hello and welcome to another video, and this one I'm filming during the daytime because I filmed this video last night and I come to edit today and it was terrible. I wasn't very well yesterday and I filmed it, I got the information all mixed up, it was just bad. So instead of putting that one out, I'm filming this today, Monday. It goes out tomorrow night. It's going to be a tight turnaround, but it's better putting this version out than the old version. This story is about Mackworth in Derbyshire. Now this is on the west-north part of Derbyshire, and I come about this story through someone called Richard Felix. Now years ago had a conversation with Richard about the ghosts in Derbyshire. Now Richard used to work on Most Haunted and all this sort of stuff. He's just started a TikTok channel, so check out his TikTok channel over there, really good. He's just the biggest depth of knowledge of paranormal stuff, same as like Phil Wyman, but it's well worth checking him out. The conversation we had was about a old cottage down in a farm field in Mackworth. That led to these ghost stories I'm going to tell you. Then there was this event in 1921. I started researching this event of 1921 and then found the link to these cottages in there. Possible link. But also there's the difference of opinion on where these ghost stories were and where this cottage was that adds a little bit of interest to the story as well. So hopefully I'm going to do a better job in telling you this today and see how we get on. So let's tell you the stories. This is not a time slip one, by the way. This is a ghost history type video, so hope you can enjoy it. Now, where I went wrong in the video last night, I didn't really give you an explanation of Derby and Derbyshire and the history of the ghost side of it all and the witchcraft. For you to understand why people in this area believed the events that I'm about to tell you took place is because their foundation in witchcraft and the supernatural was quite deep. So you have the Derby Ghoul. Now this is the jail where witches were kept, and now you go to Derby today and you can go on some brilliant ghost walks. Richard believes it's one of the most haunted places in the country, and I have no doubt about that through the mass of stories there are. Now Mackworth is only a few miles away from Derby Ghoul. So as I say, you come out of, I think it's Ashbourne Road, you get onto Ashbourne Road, you follow that through and it takes you to the village of Mackworth. This was a village out in the middle of nowhere until about just after the 1940s, when a massive council house development took place and a lot of the land over there was built upon, apart from Mackworth village itself. Now up there you've got the All Saints Church. Unfortunately in 2022 suffered an arson attack and is completely destroyed. Now lucky enough they are rebuilding it now, but that has got ghost stories linked to it as well, and they sort of fall into line with what these stories are about to tell you. But what we're focusing on is an old cottage that is down on the fields, around about half a mile down from Mackworth village. Now this little cottage was called the Shepherd's Keep. Now in 1750 a family moved in there, and the gentleman is described as extremely large, very scary, very angry looking man. He had 2 children and his wife. He was there to work on the land. So I'm trying to film this, and there's work going on in the street, and they've got drills and saws and everything going, so I have to keep pausing it. This is why I film late at the night time, but then I get the neighbours having parties outside, so perhaps I need to hire a studio, go off somewhere and film with it now. Now some say this gentleman's name was Edward or Ed Giant, so people obviously played upon his size. Now he kept himself to himself, but he was also used in the village when really heavy work needed to take place. Due to his size, he could lift a lot in one go. So people would go to him for help. He would turn up, do the job and go. But as I say, he was mainly there to work on the land. What happened to his family is a little bit we'll say, the mystery. In 1750, he disappeared. They found his wife's body in Shepherd's Keep, and the children were gone. So no one see these children ever again, which is something that will pop up a bit later on. It is expected that he took the life of his wife and then did something to the children and then disappeared. Now, he's such a large gentleman that people thought that around the villages in that area, people would recognise him. But there's never any sighting of him again. Apart from later on in late years, when a vision appears down the road that may be him. But we'll get into that. But from that moment on, Shepherd's Keep was seen as cursed. Now, in the 1600s, witchcraft was massive in that area, and people would give explanations when weird things happened, and they'd say it was witches. People said that Edward had actually made friends with a lady in the village at the time, in 1750, that some people thought was a witch, and that she cursed him and his family. Other people said that being she disappeared at the same time, they run off together. He'd done in his family and fled with her. She comes back onto the scene a few years later, denies anything about that, and says that the last time she's seen was down at Shepherd's Keep. The cottage was then reused in 1780, very much like the job the other gentleman had, that Edward had. The new guy there was also there to work on the land. It wasn't long after him and his family moved in. Now, he only had one child and his wife, that some strange things started to happen. First of all, his wife woke up screaming that there was a gentleman standing in their room, she described as a massive man, which falls into the description of Edward. The husband wakes up, he looks, he can't see nothing. The wife is still screaming that this man is standing there. He gets out of bed, walks over, there's no one in that cottage. Now, remember at that time we didn't have any old light switches, so he probably had to light a candle or something like that to show her that there was no one in there. One detail that happens links directly back to the events that Edward was meant to have done. When they found Edward's wife, her arms were separated, both from the elbows down. One evening, the child, now I don't know if this child is male or female, wakes up screaming that someone's cut them. They run into the mum and dad's room, and on their arms, just below the elbow, there's 2 gashes on both arms. There's no way this could have happened, so the dad goes in there, checks around the bedroom in case there's something that they've cut themselves on in the bedroom. No explanation for that at all. I always think that people, when we talk about the old years, like 1750, 1780, people have the wrong image of what life was back then. Yes, it was hard, they didn't have the technology, but it was a civil society. They just got to live their lives like we do today. Just that things were a little bit different. So obviously they were concerned for the child. Adding that to what his wife had seen in the bedroom, which they believe was this ghost of the man that used to live there that had done his family in, they went to All Saints Church. Now, at the time, that church had actually been quite busy over the last 100 years with a lot of the accusations of witchcraft and cultism in the area. Some people said that black magic was being used around Derby. So the church was there to counteract that. I'm sure that there's historians out there that can add a load more to that, but we can keep this quite brief for this. The people at All Saints Church, now I don't know if this is the vicar or bishop or whatever, suggested to the family for the weekend they stay at the church. They were going to go and stay at the cottage and see how they felt about it, if they felt it was possessed, if there was demons there, and they were going to try and help them. On the Saturday evening, the priest or vicar, whoever it was, come back, turned around and said that they advised the family never to go back to that cottage, that there was an evil spirit in there that was very, very powerful. They didn't argue with the church and they never returned to the cottage. Nothing really gets recorded about this cottage until 1820. In 1820, we have another family move into this cottage. Now, this cottage has been a bit of a pain in the knee to track down. So I have 3 locations, possibly 4 locations for this cottage, right? So the old 1860 map shows a building down in the field that I suspect is this cottage, and that is just off of the road down there. I always have to look this up because I keep forgetting what the name of the road is. This cottage, you would actually have got to it on Radbourne Lane. Now, Radbourne Lane goes right the way down to where this cottage would have been, apart from, going by the map that I'm looking at in 1816, where this cottage is, or was, is now a co-op. So if anyone lives on Richardson's Way, near the co-op, let me know if you've ever seen anything weird in the co-op. That is the location that I put it myself. Now, other people will say that this could have been the farmhouse. Now, the farmhouse is now a hotel restaurant and it looks brilliant, but I'm not too sure about that. The other one is the Bowbridge Farm Fields, or the Bowbridge Farm. That falls into play a little bit with a story that we'll touch upon. But in 1820, this new family move into this cottage and everything seems to be fine. They're there, no issues at all, until the winter comes. During the winter evenings, the family starts saying that they hear children's voices in this cottage. Now, their children were quite old, so they were about to leave. When I say quite old, they're 12 and 14. This is 1820. At 12 and 14, they're getting ready to go to work. So, different times, isn't it? It's that sort of thing. The older one, 14-year-old, was actually staying away a lot as they were getting ready to work at a mill. So they weren't coming back, because just how it was. So this left 3 of them in that cottage. None of them were of the age of making children voices and sounds. So at 8 o'clock in the evening, they're sitting there around their fire. They hear these children screaming and crying. They look around the cottage and the sound can't be pinpointed. Eventually, they open up the front door of the cottage and it was quite a thick blanket of snow. They see these 2 children standing just outside their cottage. They describe them as wearing sort of bedgowns. As anyone would do, you'd be quite shocked and surprised to see these kids standing there in this sort of weather. They go to bring the children in. Those children turn and walk off, and the dad goes out to follow them. He can't find them, they've disappeared. When he's walking back to the cottage, he notices that those children did not leave any imprints in the snow. So where they walked, there was nothing. The snow had not been disturbed at all. He goes back in. He doesn't tell his wife. He thinks he's a bit freaky. He says that they've probably just gone back up to the village and he's sure that they're okay. All the time thinking that he thinks he's just seen a ghost. I'm not too sure if that point they knew the history of this building that was nearly 100 years ago, 80 years ago. So something weird was going on. So I don't know for a fact that he knew the history of that, but he does get told it in a minute. In the early hours of the morning, his wife wakes up being attacked, and standing above her is the husband with a big knife trying to attack her. She says kill her, but his swinging isn't very coordinated, as if he's not with it. She manages to get out of the bedroom, grabs the kid, they run downstairs. He comes downstairs and he's swinging wildly downstairs. He's taking chunks out of the cottage with the knife. They get out the door. Now remember, this is snow. As they come out the door, these two children are standing there. The dad comes out with the knife, and as he steps into the snow, he goes back to normal. And he doesn't have any recollection of what had happened at all. These children disappear at the same time. Now, the wife and child see these two kids standing there, so they're freaked out now because they see them vanish at the same time that the husband was coming out, and they were fearful for their life, and it was just this big bundle of confusion at the same time. A lot for them to take in. They've collapsed on the floor crying. The husband, now totally coherent, comes over and starts comforting them, and they're saying that you was going to kill us, you was going to kill us. And he's going, I didn't do nothing. Yet at the same time, still holding this great big knife that he had just tried to attack them with. They again think that the building is possessed. They go to All Saints Church again, who then fill them in a little bit about the history of that building. But they don't leave. What they do, they fill that cottage up with religious symbols, crosses and all this sort of stuff. And I guess you'll probably see that in modern sort of exorcism films and all that, putting crosses on the wall and all that. Apparently this cottage was covered in them inside. Not to an extreme extent, there was just a fair few there. Unfortunately, only a few weeks later, this happened again. He got up, being possessed. Again, the family got out of the cottage. This time there was no snow there, and there was no children there. But as he stepped out of that cottage, he come back to being normal. Sadly, the next day, he takes his own life. He takes his own life in that cottage. Whilst the family are out, obviously feeling that he is being possessed or is a danger to his family, he decides it's best that he's not there. That family move out of that cottage. Then in 1852, the last known inhabitants of that cottage move in. And this is just a husband and wife. And right from the start, they say in this cottage that they see the gentleman standing there, they have two children in there, and now they say they've got the ghost of another man in there that haunts the bedroom. This links into where the gentleman took his own life. Him and his wife carry on and live in that cottage. They don't move out or anything like that. They pass away naturally, and we don't know anything else about this cottage until around about 1921. 1921, something happens in the village that causes an uproar, and it links back to this cottage. Some say it links back to this cottage. I will add that. Some say it links back to this cottage. And this was the mysterious murder of Mackworth. Now, deep diving into this, I did come across a bit from the Derby Daily Telegraph, and this is back in 1921, and it's got the Mackworth murder date, the adjourned inquest on the body of Thomas Wald, the victim, murder case, has been fixed for next Monday. The police have drained the pond which was the scene of the crime. and this was on Thursday the 16th of June 1921. What we know, the murderer was Richard Williamson. Only hearsay here. People say that Richard lived in the cottage down on this field. Other people say he was actually at the farmhouse. This would be Bowbridge Farm. Now Bowbridge Farm, the land has got a pond on it that will fall into that, but also the farmhouse, which is the restaurant there, also has a pond there. So trying to find the location of this murder is a little bit tricky, but as I say, hearsay was that Richard Williamson was a resident of this cottage down on this field. Others say he actually lived on the corner house of one of these farms. So again, we get this little bit of confusion. So of course, some people in the area suggested that being he come from that cottage, he was possessed, and that's what caused this murder to happen. Other people don't link it, but when you've got these strange events happening in the area over a couple of hundred years, people with their myths and legends start building upon them. So we have that. To add to this, we have the amount of ghost sightings and paranormal events that happen along the roads in that area that link directly back to the incidences that happened in that cottage. So on Ashbourne Road, now you've got to go right the way up to Bowbridge Garage. This is just a little bit further out of the village, where a strange event happened that could explain what happened to Edward at the beginning. One evening in 1950, the new council estate had been built, the roads were being redeveloped, the whole area was under mass regeneration. More and more people were going through that area. On Ashbourne Road, going up by Bowbridge Garage, some people driving along in their car. They see a large bundle in the road. They stop the car, they get out, they describe a man lying in that road, sort of basically not in the road, is on the side of the road but hanging into the road. They describe him as a giant of a man. They go over to him and he's groaning, he's not really breathing that well. The wife stays with the gentleman, the husband gets back in his car, drives down to Mackworth to the phone box to phone for an ambulance. He phones for the ambulance, he comes back, and as he's coming back, his wife is standing petrified on the side of the road. She said that within seconds of him turning the car around and heading back, that man in the road vanished. This isn't the only time that this person was seen. Over the next 5 years, now this has not been reported since, over the next 5 years, 4 more reports of cars stopping because there's somebody laying in that road and calling for emergency assistance, and that person disappearing before anybody gets there, gets reported. We don't know for sure this is Edward, but maybe Edward didn't make a clean getaway. Knowing that maybe he was possessed, maybe something in that cottage that we don't know about. You know, Mackworth has got medieval history, it's Roman, so there are ghosts of Romans just behind All Saints Church. People say they see the ghosts of Romans walking down there. You've got medieval history that we don't really understand, all their cults and cultures around there. Could this cottage have been possessed so much that when he committed his crime, he wasn't with it, and then ended up taking his own life, or somebody taking action against him walking along that road? We know these roads existed back then, not in the condition we know roads now, but Ashbourne Road and Radbourne Lane both existed. So that brings into Radbourne Lane, which we can talk about now. So I stopped for 5 minutes because the building work outside was getting ridiculous. It was saying a large bee in the area. So Radbourne Lane. This is where we've got the most current ghost stories. This ghost has been seen, or these ghosts have been seen, since 1960 up until 2020. So what we have, the first one's in 1960, we've got a couple walking their dog down Radbourne Lane, and they hear these children in the field on their right hand side. So they're walking down the lane, so the fields are on the right hand side. They're concerned because it's getting quite late in the evening, and they look over and they can hear these children crying. The husband gets to a gap in the bushes, goes through and walks over to the field to see if he can see anything. He describes two children wearing old-fashioned bedgowns. Now, he describes them as a boy and a girl. We don't really have a description of what gender these kids were back then, but he describes them as a boy and girl. They're really distressed. The wife comes to the gap and says, "Bring them over here, they're obviously lost." He gets up to them, and literally within a few feet of them, he gives a really description of this girl with jet black hair, pale face, absolutely distraught, the boy with bright blonde hair, with tears strolling down his face, and what looks like blood on his bedgown. He puts his arm out to bring them closer to him, and they disappear. They vanish in front of him. He falls back in shock, not knowing what has just gone on. His wife screams, and she's watching and sees these kids disappear in front of them. And they come back and they talk to other people, and they say that they've seen these ghosts of these children. At that point, nobody makes any link to any history or anything like that. A couple of years later, another couple are walking down that road. Now, this is more winter time, and there's a deep frost across those fields. Again, they hear these children crying. The husband sees them over in the field. This time, the wife goes over. She's walking across this field. She bends down and takes the hand of the little girl, talking to her and trying to get sense out of her. She gives the same description about this jet black hair. And as she's talking to the girl, she disappears. And she said that she can touch the hands of this girl, solid hands. And all of a sudden, they just all disappeared in her hand. Completely scares the life out of her. The husband is in shock. They go back, and this is the only time when I said, well, actually, not long ago, we had another report of these two children in this field. This starts the old tongues waggling around the village, and they come up with the old bit of history about these two children that disappeared out of this cottage that nobody ever see. They found the wife's body, but the two children disappeared. Will they ever uncover what happened to these children? Will they ever discover maybe two skeletons in that area? We don't know. We know that the pond that got drained, there's no other bodies in there. So what did happen to these two children? Now the thing is, Radbourne Lane, if this cottage is where we believe it is, on the site of the co-op now, Radbourne Lane was there back in history. They would have walked up that lane to the village. It's very plausible that maybe if they escaped when their dad was doing this, and they didn't want to run up the lane directly, and they went across the fields to get away from him, maybe he caught them in the fields. We don't know. But 1990, these children are seen again in this field. This time we don't see a close-up image, we just get a report of the figure of two children walking across that field and disappearing. In 2020, this is actually before lockdown, so not a normal one when everyone was going for their daily walks. This was New Year 2020. We have a couple driving up that lane. The bushes were a little bit thinner because it was winter. They stopped their car because they see these two children walking across the field. And they stood out because of their dress, because it was weird. It was like a cold day, and they were wearing bedclothes, which they just thought was very, very bizarre. I will say, before going any further, this report comes from a local paranormal team up there, so I have no other evidence apart from what they've said. The husband gets out of the car, goes onto the field, then he's shortly followed by his wife. The car is on the road. They beckon these children over. Now the children acknowledge them and start walking towards them. The wife takes hold of the girl's hand and they take them onto the road. Now as they come over from the field to the tarmac of that road, they disappear. They literally vanish into thin air. The wife who actually had the hand of the girl said it just felt like something just dissolved in her hand. They're standing there in shock, but straight away saying that they've seen a ghost and these were phantom children. They go back, talk to locals, and again are told about this ghost story. This ghost story seems to be well known, but when you dig in the area around here, I can't find nothing. Now, Richard Felix told me the original story a long time ago. Long time ago. It weren't for the fact that I come across this 1921 murder mystery when I was doing research actually on something else in Derbyshire that I hope to cover one day, but I would actually need to go there to film around it and all that, but it's really interesting. But when I started deep diving this and kept coming up about this the Shepherd's Keep, this old cottage, and yeah, it's going through the old newspapers. Unfortunately, during this I was using the old newspapers for research, and all of a sudden they've hit a paywall. So the National Archives, a newspaper, have just whacked up a paywall. And it's really expensive. So I don't know what I'm going to do for my research at the moment, apart from driving up to Derby and all these places now to go to the local libraries. But yeah, that was a bit of a kick in the teeth, because it's been so easy to deep dive into research via the internet, because a lot of these newspapers have started putting copies on there now, and then they've whacked a paywall up on it. So lucky enough, I got this one done at the right time, because I ain't gonna be able to do it again now. So yeah, it's a bit bizarre they've done that. I mean, I've just paid Getty Images a subscription fee, so I can use more historical images in my videos, and I take on board. People turn around and said to me in one of the comments that they like my videos, but the AI images make it cheap. Unfortunately, I use them as a method of telling a story. You don't want to just keep looking at me on this video, and if I can describe and point a picture of what was there at the time, I know the description. I try and do those videos and those AI images at the best I can without making them look too real, because what I don't want to do is go down the route of all this AI stuff that's happening at the moment. I don't want to be making realistic images and all that. I want them to still look arty type. There's one I had to use in the last video that for me was just seemed a little bit too real, and so I just changed it around a little bit. I don't want to go down that. AI is a good tool if it's used in the right way. Otherwise, I just feel it's lying. It's cheating. I don't like that. I take a lot of time trying to get my AI images looking accurate for what I need, but not too realistic to try and trick people into being their real photos. So I'm sorry that you may feel that they cheapen the video. I like them. I enjoy making them. It's actually now getting expensive because I've actually paid to a subscription fee to one of them, so I can do a few more. But yeah, it's a tool that we use. Thank you for all your support. This video is an interesting place. If you ever go up to Mackworth, have a little dig around, go to All Saints Church. It has got the ghost of the lady there, so outside the church you might see a white lady walking up and down the pathway. So you've got loads of little ghost stories around there, and just drive 3 miles into Derby and you'll have the most amazing time with all these ghost stories. Go on the Derby Ghost Walk. You're going to love it. I know people have done it before and have had a fantastic time. Derbyshire has got this great history of ghosts, and I do want to go up there. Normally I only go through Derby when I go up to Alton Towers, so saying that with the reputation all towers have got at the moment, I don't think I'll be going up there anytime soon. We used to have morning parties, and because of Thorpe Parkways being down and Alton Towers getting rid of Nemesis at the time, I know it's back there now, but it just wasn't worth doing it. I'm going on a tangent about theme parks now. I'm going to be saying goodbye and wrapping the video up, but again, don't forget to go through my back catalogue of So They Say, loads of videos on there. My next video is going back to the witches. So we've got some witch stories coming up, ghost stories, all about one location. And I was there the other night filming, and it's a weird place. I think I see some local witches. I'll take that back. But they certainly cackled like them. Oh dear. My wife said that, not me. I said I was up here looking for witches, Mum. You just found them. But I'll cut all that out of that video so you won't hear them. And again, my neighbour's drilling. So I'm going to wrap this video up. And again, thank you for all your support. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.